It's when they feel helpless that obedience begins to break down.
As far as losing control, I've always, after the initial 3 or 4 seconds, I felt I was within control of myself. And then that spilled over into control of my people. The only time that I felt that I had no control was when we had incoming. Once I thought I'd lost everything. I had made my peace with my maker. We were in an open rice paddy, and they were using a 60-millimeter mortar. And we could see the round coming out of the tube. We could see it to where it would peak and then start coming in on us. And it was nothing we could do. People were scattering every which way. Couldn't stand up and scatter, so there's a lot of scurrying around. There was no control there until they ran out of rounds. It was whenever I gained my control back.
Losing control is a polite phrase for panic, and it's always a possibility in war because that is, in the end, what combat is for, to break down the ties that bind armies together, the soldiers' loyalty to each other, and the trust in their officers, which is the ultimate source of obedience. The threat of violent death and the need to inflict death on others always overwhelms the will of some soldiers to go on. If it happens to too many soldiers at once, whole armies can collapse, but that happens only rarely. Armies are very good at getting their soldiers to withstand the most terrible suffering. Usually the training holds and the command structure goes on working even in the worst of circumstances. Dan Lanner took command as Israel's outnumbered troops on the Golan Heights were on the point of being overrun at the start of the 1973 war.
I think for the first 3.5 days, I never left the radio. I was talking continuously. We were about a distance, about 2,000 yards from the Syrian tanks, because they shot at us, which we didn't like very much. And then you try, in this case, just to quiet everyone down. Stay where you are, hold on as long as you can, and we will sort the thing out.
Camp Gagetown, Canada. Junior officer training, the foundation of the command structure. Here in the scrub of southern New Brunswick, officer candidates in the Canadian Army are being marked on their leadership, on how well they can lead a group of their colleagues in a mock attack. It's difficult to get other people to follow orders that could easily get them killed unless they have complete confidence in your judgment.
And reorg approximately 50 meters out. I'll tell you when. Charge! Dead, you motherfucker. Hey, let's go! Fire and move it! Go, mate! Go, Huff! Let's go! Move it up!
Well, it wasn't as bad as the second one.
This man is a trained soldier who wants to become an officer. He was in command of the last mock attack.
What do you think of it? They came out of the bush line too early. With the C2 group up there, they walked right into our line of fire.
The Army doesn't really care whether his attack succeeded. What it needs to know now, before he gets any further, is whether he can make decisions well under pressure and project the kind of warrior image that will persuade men to follow him.
Now, why did you decide on the right flanking initially? I believe that there would have been more cover fire cover from the right side.
Did you have a look? Just have a look now.
The scrub and the small bushes.
Now look to the left. What do you have?
Forest, plus the road, the dead ground.
Did somebody mention it, left flanking? Somebody in the section?
I did.
That's okay. I don't care if you help each other out. But like I told you before, make your plan, and if you start switching plans after you pass it on to your section, what does it do to them?
Loss of
confidence. They're going to say, to hell, I'm not following them anywhere, am I?
This would-be officer was sent back to his unit the next day.
That's where George handed me the thunder flash and said, boom.
Yeah, you were probably picking raspberries.
Did you lose? I heard that you people lost a guy yesterday.
Yeah, one man, one hole.
Yeah.
He had trouble in leadership tests, so it was decided that that was it from this year. And depending on how he does at his unit during the year, they'll decide whether he'll have the chance to come back or not, if he develops his leadership during the year.
What do you mean by leadership?
Yeah, the ability to lead men, to coordinate, have your control of people, have them do the right things at the right time. It's some people say you're born with it, others say you develop it. I think it's something that's developed.
Mostly what we're looking for is if they can command, if they can get what they want done across to the people and have it done in the way they want it carried out. And if people aren't following their instructions, to get on them and get it sorted out. If a guy doesn't have it, you can tell when he crosses the start line. Just by his attitude, his reaction, his indecisiveness. When things start to go wrong, he doesn't get a grip on things. He doesn't straighten it out.
What are the implications of that come the day of the battle if you can't get it right then?
If he can't do it right then, his men are going to die. Simple as that.
Or he's going to come down and swing south and come in as the second echelon back against us.
Battalion Staff, 1st Battalion, 5th Cavalry, U.S. Army.
Okay. And for me, it's a question of follow me, do as I do. And it's a question of confidence. And I tell all my people that the only thing that I'm interested in is killing more Russians, lots of Russians. And if we're unable to do that, then obviously something that we're doing is wrong.
Colonel Bigelow's tough soldierly image had a very functional purpose when he was a junior officer in Vietnam leading a small group of men under fire. But now that he's a colonel, his real job in a war, just like Dan Lanner's on the Golan Heights in 1973, is to stay on the radio. That's the only way he can control the 800 men under his command, most of whom he'll never see during a battle. And, of course, he's never been in command of a whole battalion in a real war.
Or if there's any kind of a difficulty, I'll follow right along.
We're going to fire a 5-minute prep.
Well, where are the current locations?
Armies spend most of their lives in peacetime. In fact, armies are remarkably non-violent organizations, except when they're let off the leash and told to go and fight. And as combat becomes an ever more complicated business, armies must go to ever more bizarre lengths to simulate the real thing. Today's middle-level officer has become a sort of choreographer of violence in 3 dimensions, orchestrating infantry, tanks, guns, missiles, even aircraft, spread out over hundreds of square miles and always on the move. The only way to train the commanders is by constant practice in conditions as realistic as possible, but not so realistic that anybody gets killed. So one of the devices the U.S. Army uses to get round the problem is this, the Combined Arms Tactical Training Simulator. Certainly the world's most impressive video war game.
We have
These are Colonel Bigelow's company commanders. In a real battle, they'd be down on the front lines, getting orders from the colonel and passing information back to him. Here at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, a computer is the enemy, and the information only goes to the colonel's staff in the room next door. Even in a real war, the practical side of the colonel's job is somewhere between that of an air traffic controller and a personnel manager. He could get killed doing it, and so could his officers, but what they're actually doing is controlling and monitoring the expenditure of vehicles, troops, and ammunition.
He's combat effective. He just has one platoon that's ineffective.
Most significant difficulty for us is the proper way of putting combat power to work on the battlefield. Who controls the fires? Do we let the individual gunner fire each missile? We expended a heck of a lot of missiles in this last battle, shooting at targets that might have been destroyed with artillery or another means. And, you know, each one of those missiles is $2,500, $3,000 apiece.
In a modern infantry division, only a small fraction of the soldiers are actually operating weapons. Collectively, they can do a great deal of damage, but the reality of combat for most of them is not at all the traditional experience of the warrior. Warfare has been affected by the same technological trends that have transformed the rest of our society. The USS John F. Kennedy on the Mediterranean Sea. It takes the coordinated efforts of 5,500 highly trained people to operate this ship at sea, and at least 3 times as many people ashore to support it. the organization, the skill, the cooperativeness, the dedication that make this ship possible.